We have some happy news, ladies and gentlemen. A bit of a victory for British people against the extreme net zero measures, especially the ultra low emission zones, ULEZ, all the clean air zones in Birmingham. Absolute chaos right now in Birmingham with their own net zero project, which is basically they relabeled ULEZ. They changed it into clean air zone to make it sound better. But it's all falling apart. Guess how? Yes, so the clean air zones in Birmingham, which they've been selling it as such a nice, lovely thing, which is basically affecting a lot of ordinary people who have to use their cars to drive their kids to school or go to work, and not necessarily those who use their private cars, but we're talking about those sole traders and small businesses who have a van, for example, with a lot of equipment. Basically, recently, things escalated in Birmingham because they had to give out 70,000 clean air zone fines, but they have to at this point write them off. They have decided to write them off because people in Birmingham refuse to pay. Yes, absolute genius. So people stopped basically, they kept getting these fines and they refused to pay, and Birmingham kept threatening them. At this point, they just said, let's just give up. So 70,000 clean air zone fines are now being completely cancelled. This cash cow scheme will bring the Birmingham Council £50,000 this year. And the issue with this is that they're not going to, for those who get excited and say, well, despite the way it's been implemented, it's probably a good idea that there's going to be a lot of tax revenue for the local authority because they could use it for public services. They don't. They actually don't. This cash cow scheme, just like in London with Sadiq Khan, with ULEZ, what they do is, one of the reasons that Sadiq Khan is doing, not just when it comes to control, is because TfL in London has almost gone bankrupt a couple of times. He had to beg the Westminster and central government to bail him out. Now, by taxing people even further using ULEZ fines, he could replace the money that he's lost or wasted, essentially. That's just one tiny reason. There's so many other reasons for this, but it's not going to be used to help you and your life. Now, this is the map that we have when it comes to Birmingham's clean air zone in the name of net zero. And so it's the city centre of Birmingham, which is obviously, for those who know, it's like a maze. And at this point, if you are a private citizen, it wants to, for some reason, go from a place to another place, there is public transport. There are like trains and buses and everything else. It's actually not easy to drive through the central Birmingham, but there are people who have no choice. As I said, for example, a plumber or those who are window cleaners, if they have a van or something, they still have to make an effort and drive through that maze that is the central Birmingham, but they're going to get taxed. They have no choice. They're going to get punished for going to work to make money that they'll be using to then pay tax to the treasury. It makes no sense. You're double taxing, triple taxing people every single day for simply leaving their house. You breathe, you pay tax. You walk, you pay tax. You eat, you pay tax. Everything you do, you pay tax. This is the country that we call Britain in 2023. So, the Birmingham City Council released a statement after failing to get people to pay their fees and fines. They said, in the 18-month period since the start of the enforcement of the Clean Air Zone in 2021, there have been 69,114 penalty charge notices written off so far, which is around 6% of the total issued. This represents a combination of cases that have been challenged, appealed, and the reasons of mitigation accepted or discretion exercised as per the council's discretion policy, and cases where the council has been unable to collect payment or trace the registered keeper. He added, there have been 48,256 penalty charge notices that have been rescinded so far, where the reasons of mitigation have been accepted or the discretion exercised, that are included in the total. The funny thing is, obviously, there have been a lot of other people who have been paying these fines. But now that this news has now been published, I know, obviously, the mainstream media are not talking about this update, BBC or Sky or any of them. But in the local newspapers in Birmingham, it's come out, and I'm talking about it. Hopefully, you guys will be sharing it with everybody you know, especially in Birmingham. The more this news is actually going to be published and talked about, more people in Birmingham are going to find out that they can refuse to pay. And they're going to refuse to pay. And the whole thing will collapse. And it's going to be funny because this is one of the best ways to actually campaign against it. Even in London, when it comes to ULEZ or in Bristol and other places, this is how you do it. Because we found the weakness in the establishment. If they keep chasing you, you just refuse and don't give out your information, and they can't prosecute you. Because, of course, if you show weakness, they will. But if you do it en masse, if everybody at the same time refuse and essentially go on some sort of general strike when it comes to not paying it, then they can't really stop every single person. They can't arrest every single person. This is going to be completely exposing the flaw in the system anyway, which is absolutely hilarious. Let me know what you think of this whole update from Birmingham. I'm Mahyar, Tousi, and we are the media.